on these highways for 23 years, and I thought I'd seen it all. Name's Jake Morrison, and if you'd told me that a simple fuel stop at mile marker 125 on Route 66 would flip my whole world upside down, I'd have laughed you right out of my cab. But that's exactly what happened on that April afternoon when the sky turned the color of a bruised peach. I was running a load of auto parts from Chicago to Amarillo. Nothing special. Just another Tuesday in my Peterbilt, listening to the CB chatter and watching the Illinois farmland roll by like a movie reel. The gauge was sitting on a quarter tank when I spotted that old Sinclair station. You know the type, with the green dinosaur sign that's been there since the 50s. Place looked like time forgot it, which is why I love stopping there. The wind was already picking up something fierce when I pulled in. Should have been my first warning, but I was too focused on making good time. See, in this business, time is money, and money keeps the lights on back home. I grabbed the diesel nozzle and started filling up, watching the numbers spin on that ancient pump. That's when I heard it. Not the storm, but something that made my blood run cold. A woman screaming. She came tearing around the corner of the station in a beat-up Honda Civic that had seen better days. The car screeched to a halt right next to my rig, and she practically fell out of the driver's seat. Her hair was wild, clothes disheveled, and her eyes, Lord, those eyes held the kind of terror I'd only seen once before, in Afghanistan. "Please," she gasped, grabbing my arm with both hands. "You gotta help us, it's coming!" Before I could even process what she was saying, two kids tumbled out of the back seat. A boy, maybe 10 years old, and a little girl who couldn't have been more than 6. They clung to their mama like their lives depended on it, and looking back now, maybe they did. "Ma'am, slow down," I said, trying to steady her. "What's coming?" She pointed west, toward the horizon, and that's when I saw it. A wall of black clouds rolling in like God's own freight train, and beneath it, something that made my 45-year-old heart skip a beat. The unmistakable funnel of a tornado still miles off, but heading our way. "My house," she choked out between sobs. "Everything we own, it's gone. We barely made it out." Her name was Sarah, I'd learn later, Sarah Chen. Single mum, worked 2 jobs, doing everything she could to keep those kids fed and safe. But you can't outwork Mother Nature when she's angry. The wind picked up another notch, and I made a decision that would change everything. "Get in my truck," I commanded, already moving toward the cab. "Now!" She hesitated for just a second, and I get it. Trusting a stranger is hard, especially when you've got kids. But sometimes, when the devil's knocking at your door, you don't get to be picky about your angels. The kids were crying now, that kind of scared whimper that breaks your heart. I scooped up the little girl, Emma, her mama called her, while Sarah grabbed her boy, Marcus. We piled into my Peterbilt just as the first debris started flying past. A metal trash can went cartwheeling across the parking lot like a tumbleweed in an old western. "Buckle up," I barked, firing up the engine. The diesel roared to life, all 500 horses ready to run. But here's the thing about tornadoes, you can't just outrun them, you gotta be smart. I'd been through tornado training, sure, but this was different. This time, I had precious cargo. Sarah was shaking like a leaf, trying to comfort her kids while stealing glances at the side mirror. "It destroyed everything," she whispered. 20 years of memories gone in seconds. I grabbed the CB mic with one hand while steering with the other. "Breaker, breaker. This is Big Jake on Channel 19. We got a tornado touching down near mile 125. Any bears got a 20 on safe shelter." The radio crackled with responses. Truckers might seem like lone wolves, but when trouble hits, we're a brotherhood. "Big Jake, this is Moondog. There's an overpass at mile 132, but that ain't safe. Better head north on County Road 23. There's a storm shelter at the old Miller farm." But I knew better. Overpasses are death traps in a tornado, and County Road 23 would take us right into its path. No, I had a different idea. There was an old truck stop about 10 miles east, Rosie's place. It had a basement built back when folks understood the meaning of Tornado Alley. "Hold tight," I told Sarah, throwing the truck into gear. "We're gonna make it." The rig lurched forward, and I pushed her harder than I should have. The speedometer climbed past 70, which is asking for trouble with 40,000 pounds of cargo behind you, but that twister wasn't giving us much choice. In my mirrors, I could see it had touched down proper now, a massive grey funnel grinding across the farmland, chewing up everything in its path. Emma had buried her face in her mama's chest, but Marcus was watching everything with wide eyes. Brave kid, reminded me of myself at that age. "Is it gonna catch us, mister?" he asked, voice small but steady. "Not on my watch, buddy," I said, downshifting to take a curve. "I've been driving this road since before you were born. We're gonna be just fine." But inside, I wasn't so sure. The wind was hammering us now, trying to push 80,000 pounds of truck and trailer off the road like it was nothing. I've driven through blizzards in Wyoming, ice storms in Montana, but this was different. This was nature showing us who's really boss. Sarah's phone buzzed, and she looked at it with trembling hands. "My sister," she said. "She's asking if we're okay. I told her about the house." Her voice broke, and fresh tears started flowing. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice calm like I learned in the service. "You're alive. Your kids are alive. Everything else, that's just stuff. It can be replaced." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something shift in her eyes. Maybe it was hope, maybe it was just exhaustion, but she nodded. The CB crackled again. "Big Jake, you copy? This is Highway Patrol. That twister just jumped the interstate. It's moving northeast at 45 miles per hour. Northeast. That meant it was gaining on us. I pressed harder on the accelerator, feeling the turbo kick in. Rosie's place was still 5 miles out, and every second counted. The sky had turned an ugly green-black, like someone had bruised the heavens themselves. "Mr. Jake," Emma's tiny voice piped up, "are we gonna die?" Before I could answer, Sarah pulled her daughter close. "No, baby. Mr. Jake's gonna keep us safe." She looked at me with those eyes again, putting all her faith in a stranger with a CDL and a prayer. That's when I saw him in my mirror, another trucker coming up fast behind us. The CB came alive. "Big Jake, this is Steel Horse. I'm gonna run blocker for you, brother. That wind's getting squirrely." God bless the brotherhood. Steel Horse pulled up alongside us, using his rig as a windbreak. Together, we pushed through that screaming gale like two old bulls refusing to yield. The rain hit then, not drops, but sheets of water that turned the windshield into a waterfall. Even with the wipers on high, I was driving more by feel than sight. "There!" Sarah shouted, pointing through the chaos. "I see lights!" Rosie's place materialized through the storm like a beacon. The old truck stop looked like it had seen better days, but that concrete block building was exactly what we needed. I hit the air brakes hard, bringing us to a sliding stop in the parking lot. "Move, move, move!" I shouted, already unbuckling. I grabbed Emma while Sarah took Marcus, and we ran for the entrance. The wind tried to knock us down, throwing gravel and debris like bullets. I shielded the little girl with my body, feeling things ping off my back. Old Rosie herself was at the door, waving us in. "Basement's open!" she yelled over the roar. "Get down there now!" We tumbled down those stairs into a crowded storm cellar. Maybe 30 people huddled in that damp space, locals, travelers, truckers like me. The walls shook as the tornado passed overhead, sounding like 1,000 freight trains running at once. The lights flickered and died, plunging us into darkness. Emma was sobbing now, and I felt her little arms wrap around my neck. "It's okay, sweetheart," I whispered. "We're safe down here. This basement's been through worse storms than this." In the darkness, I felt Sarah's hand find mine. She squeezed it tight, and I squeezed back. Funny how disaster strips away all the barriers between strangers. 10 minutes ago, we didn't know each other existed. Now, we were hanging on to each other like family. The roar seemed to last forever, but it was probably only a few minutes. When it finally passed, the silence was almost as scary as the noise. We waited, nobody wanting to be the first to speak, until Rosie's voice cut through the dark. "I think it's moved on." Slowly, carefully, we made our way back up the stairs. The truck stop was still standing, but barely. Half the roof was gone, and you could see straight through to the sky, but we were alive. All of us. Sarah hadn't let go of my hand. When we stepped outside, she gasped. My truck was on its side, trailer twisted like a pretzel. 40,000 pounds of auto parts scattered across 3 counties. But Steel Horse's rig had made it through, sitting there like nothing happened. My load, I muttered, calculating the loss. My company's gonna have my hide. Sarah looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Your load? Jake, you just saved our lives and you're worried about car parts? She was right, of course. Standing there in that devastated parking lot, with her kids clinging to us both, I realized how backwards my priorities had been. 23 years on the road, chasing miles and money, and what did I have to show for it? An empty apartment in Kansas City, and a photo of my ex-wife tucked behind the sun visor. You're right, I said, running a hand through my hair. It's just, this job is all I got. Marcus tugged on my shirt. You got us now, Mr. Jake. You're our hero. Hero. If only that kid knew how far from a hero I felt. But looking at their faces, Sarah's grateful tears, Emma's trusting eyes, Marcus's admiration, something cracked open inside my chest. A wall I'd built after my divorce, after losing custody of my own kids, after years of telling myself the road was enough. Steel Horse walked over, checking his rig. Brother, that was some driving. Company giving you grief. You tell them to call me. I saw the whole thing. You're a damn hero in my book. The next few hours blurred together. Emergency crews arrived, Red Cross volunteers, insurance adjusters. Sarah's phone rang non-stop. Family, friends, her boss at the diner, her other boss at the grocery store. Everyone checking in, everyone offering help. That's small-town America for you. When disaster strikes, folks come together. I helped Sarah fill out paperwork, held Emma when she got scared of the sirens, even helped Marcus look for his baseball glove in what was left of their car. It was ruined, of course, but the kid wanted to try. That's when I made a decision. Hey, buddy, I said, kneeling down to his level. I got a glove in my truck. Well, had one. But you know what? When we get through this, I'll get you a new one. Deal? His face lit up like Christmas morning. Really? You promise? Cross my heart. And I meant it. Something about this family had gotten under my skin. Maybe it was the way Sarah kept apologizing for ruining my day, like she'd somehow summoned that tornado herself. Maybe it was how the kids had started calling me Uncle Jake without anyone telling them to. Or maybe it was just time for this old trucker to stop running from his own life. The sun was setting by the time we got temporary housing sorted. The Red Cross had set up a shelter at the high school, but it was chaos. Crying babies, barking dogs, overwhelmed volunteers. Sarah looked ready to collapse. You got family nearby? I asked. She shook her head. Sister's in Chicago, but she's got her own struggles. Parents passed a few years back. It's just us. Just them. I knew that feeling too well. My own kids were teenagers now, living with their mom in California. I sent checks, called on birthdays, but it wasn't the same. The road had been my escape from that failure, but standing there with Sarah and her kids, I wondered if maybe I'd been running in the wrong direction. Look, I said, making another decision that would have seemed crazy that morning. My company's got emergency funds for situations like this. Let me make some calls. We'll get you set up in a motel for a few days, somewhere clean and quiet. Kids need stability after something like this. Sarah's pride flared. We can't accept that. You've already done so much. Ma'am, I interrupted, using my official trucker voice. You see that overturned rig? That's $100,000 loss, easy. Company's insurance is going to pay out anyway. Least they can do is help the folks who got caught in the crossfire. It wasn't entirely true about the company funds, but she didn't need to know that. What mattered was getting those kids somewhere safe and warm for the night. I made the calls, pulled some strings, and within an hour I had them set up at a decent motel on the east side of town. Clean beds, hot showers, and a continental breakfast that would make the kids smile come morning. While Sarah got the kids settled, I sat in the motel parking lot, staring at my phone. My dispatcher had already called 3 times, and I knew I couldn't avoid it anymore. I hit callback and braced myself. "Jake, what the hell happened out there?" Tommy's voice boomed through the speaker. "I got insurance adjusters calling, saying your rig looks like it went through a blender." I explained everything. The tornado, the family, the decision to run east instead of finding shelter. Tommy listened, occasionally grunting. When I finished, the line went quiet for a long moment. "You saved 3 lives, Jake," he finally said, voice softer. "Loads insured, trucks insured, lives ain't. You did good, brother." Relief washed over me. I'd been with this company for 15 years, but you never know how these things will shake out. "Thanks, Tommy. I'll file all the paperwork tonight." "You do that. And Jake, take a few days. Sounds like you got some things to figure out." He was right about that. I knocked on Sarah's motel room door, and she answered, looking exhausted but grateful. The kids were already passed out on one of the beds, holding each other like little koalas. "I wanted to thank you again," she whispered, stepping outside so we wouldn't wake them. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been there." "Right place, right time," I said, though I was starting to think it was more than coincidence. "Listen, I talked to my company. They're good with everything. Insurance will cover the load and—" I pulled out my wallet, extracting a business card. "This is my number. You need anything, and I mean anything, you call me." She took the card with trembling fingers. "Why are you being so kind to us? You don't even know us." I thought about that for a moment, looking at the stars starting to peek through the clearing clouds. "Maybe because I've been running solo for too long. Maybe because your boy reminds me of my own kids. Or maybe because sometimes God puts you exactly where you need to be." Sarah surprised me then. She stepped forward and hugged me, really hugged me, like she was trying to transfer all her gratitude through that embrace. I stood there, awkward at first, then hugged her back. When was the last time someone had hugged me like that? Not a quick pat on the back from another trucker, but a real human connection. "The kids want to know if you'll have breakfast with us tomorrow," she said, pulling back with tears in her eyes. "Emma specifically requested pancakes with Uncle Jake." Uncle Jake. There it was again, that title I hadn't earned but somehow felt right. "I'd like that," I said, meaning it more than she could know. I walked back to Steel Horse's rig. He'd offered me his spare bunk for the night, but sleep didn't come easy. I kept thinking about Sarah and those kids, about the life I'd been living versus the life I could have. The road had been my home for so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like to be needed for more than just moving freight from point A to point B. My phone buzzed around midnight, a text from an unknown number. I opened it to find a picture, Marcus and Emma tucked into bed, with a message from Sarah. They insisted on saying goodnight to Uncle Jake. "Thank you for being our angel today." Angel. If she only knew how lost I'd been feeling lately. 60-hour weeks, truck stop food, and lonely nights listening to the CB chatter. But maybe that's how it works. Maybe we save each other. Morning came with the smell of diesel and fresh coffee from the truck stop. I found Sarah and the kids in the motel breakfast room, Emma's face lighting up like a sunrise when she saw me. "Uncle Jake, I saved you a chair." Over pancakes and orange juice, we talked about everything except the tornado. Marcus showed me his baseball cards that survived in his backpack. Emma drew me a picture of a big truck with a stick figure family next to it. Sarah smiled more than I'd seen since we met, though I could see the worry hiding behind her eyes. "Insurance adjuster is coming by this afternoon," she said quietly, while the kids were getting seconds. "I don't know what we're going to do if they don't cover temporary housing. My job at the diner, they said they'd hold my shifts but without a car." "One problem at a time," I said, remembering something my old mentor used to tell me. "You can't drive looking in the rearview mirror." And after breakfast, I made some more calls. Turned out one of my trucker buddies ran a used car lot on the side. Another knew a landlord with a furnished rental. The Brotherhood was coming through again, just like always. By noon, I had options lined up for Sarah, real solutions instead of just sympathy. But the biggest surprise came when my ex-wife called. Word travels fast in the trucking community, and she'd heard about what happened. "Jake," she said, and her voice was softer than it had been in years. "The kids want to talk to you. They're proud of their dad." I talked to my teenagers for the first time in months without it feeling forced. They'd seen the news coverage, heard how their old man had saved a family. "Dad, that was really cool," my son said. Maybe we could come visit this summer. Maybe. Such a small word carrying such big hope. By evening, things were falling into place. Sarah had a lead on a car, a possible rental house, and the insurance was coming through better than expected. The kids were bouncing back the way kids do, already turning their adventure into a story for their friends. But something had shifted between us all, some invisible thread connecting our lives now. "I need to get back on the road tomorrow," I told Sarah as we watched the kids play in the motel's small playground. "Got to file reports, get a new rig assigned, find another load." She nodded, but I saw the disappointment flash across her face. "Of course, you've got your life to get back to." "Actually," I said, making one more decision that would have seemed impossible 48 hours ago, "I'm thinking about making some changes. Maybe taking more regional runs instead of long haul. Maybe having a reason to swing through this area regular-like." Sarah looked at me, really looked at me, and smiled. "The kids would like that. They've been asking if Uncle Jake could teach Marcus to drive a big rig someday." "Someday," I agreed. "But first I owe him that baseball glove." That night I sat in my borrowed bunk, looking at the picture Sarah had sent. 3 faces that had changed my life in a single day. The tornado had taken their home, destroyed my truck, scattered 40,000 pounds of auto parts across Illinois. But sometimes you got to lose everything to find what really matters. I thought about all the miles I'd driven, all the loads I'd hauled, all the nights I'd spent alone in truck stops just like this one. None of it seemed as important as it had yesterday. Tomorrow I'd get back on the road, but it wouldn't be the same. Now I had a reason to come home. Now I had people who called me Uncle Jake and meant it. The CB crackled with late-night chatter, truckers calling out their positions, warning about speed traps, sharing stories. I grabbed the mic one last time before sleep. "This is Big Jake, signing off at mile marker 125. To all you drivers out there running through the night, keep your eyes open. You never know when you might find exactly what you've been looking for. Sometimes it takes a storm to show you the way home. Big Jake out." And for the